We're good. We're good. Take it away, Aurora.
Thank you for having me, Gary. It's lovely to see you again. It's good to be chatting with you again.
Yes, always. It's always good.
Thank you.
It's always
Um,
informative, some way or another.
I'm happy to share the lasagna vibes. And
Yes.
when I asked you if there was anything in particular that you wanted to talk about tonight, and you said that generally it was about manifesting what is inside of us to the outer reality and becoming more like artists of reality. And I think imagination is a huge part of that. And I don't see imagination as like some flimsy, whimsical thing, like because I think people associate imagination with childhood and childishness,
Hmm.
and also something that isn't real. And adults tend to teach young people, like, oh, your imagination is nothing. It's, if you think that there was something under your bed, they're like, oh, don't worry, dear, go back to bed. That's just your imagination, or
Yeah.
anything. Like, you think you see something and someone will say no, that was just your imagination. And I feel that imagination is it's the strongest muscle on our body. It is literally the thing that makes us able to do anything, and that it's not some flimsy, whimsical, nonsensical thing. It's like the most valuable thing that we have, in terms of exactly what you were saying, taking the stuff that's technically quote unquote inside, whatever is experienced intangibly in your own private reality, and being able to make it something that's outside or part of consensual reality. And to me, that integument, the bridge, is always imagination, like being able to literally project from what is in, I keep on using that word in, but like the interior realm. How
Yeah,
do you
yeah.
project it outwards?
That's a good point. Imagination has that's what's been suppressed, and that's the sad thing about it is imagination is where all of the beautiful things that we have, right? The artwork, the music, all of it came from that. It came somewhere from beyond. It was never just someone worked really hard and like cranked out a lever for a couple of years and all of a sudden a nice piece of music came out. It's not exactly like that.
I think that's an excellent point, that it's not just something that is like a rote machine or a factory. That when you create something new with your imagination, you're literally making like a miniature miracle. So anytime that, if you're playing on the piano, I'm turning on my piano, if you come up with a new song or a new melody, then you are literally, you're like giving birth to something that had never been in existence before.
Hmm.
And this is something that's very special to us as embodied biological, organic beings, that separates us from what we could call it artificial intelligence, or machine-based intelligence, or digital intelligence. Even though I think that they're not all the same, and not all of them are malevolent, but I'm not telling anybody to hug a demon or implant microchips or eat anything like that. But it's the idea, like, what is special about humanity is this capacity to innovate, or let's say biological life too, because I see it in dogs and cats and primates and horses, like being able to come up with that spark of something new. So yeah, if you're an artist or a musician, you sit down in your studio to write a new song, or a writer, like I'm not that much into, like prose, but even a writing prose can be the same thing.
Hmm.
You're performing a miraculous act. And like, so I do paintings and stuff. I know the lighting's not that good here. I don't know if you can see them in the background,
I can still
but
see them.
whenever I come into my studio to like get going on some music, sorry, to get going on some artwork and everything, I always put on music, because it's like you don't just do it from a standing jump. You
No.
don't just like stand there, and then like you got to get into the feeling of it, and
Set
it
and
is
setting and all of that, like that's all very important.
all of it. I turn on my little essential oil diffuser. I, make my place smell good. Like all of it is telling yourself, like, you're doing something that is not, the regular thing. Like I don't feel that way when I have to wash the dishes. That's a regular mundane task. I can do that no matter what my mindset is. But when I come into the studio, then I'm like, okay, like now it is time to do something that is unusual. And I feel the same way when I do the flying rainbow lasagna activity. That this is a dance that's an inner dance, and it's a meditation and an envisionment that I totally use my imagination to project into reality. And when I do it, I'm like, this is special time. Like what the way that special time is set apart, like meditation is special time, or
Yeah.
sexuality is special time. Any of that type of expression. So I'm like, yeah, like it is now. Cares of the world, press pause. It is now time for me to dance like a flying rainbow lasagna, and whatever, 5, 10, 20 minutes, an hour, for however long it is possible to maintain that mindset of imagination, where basically anything can happen. That it is possible to go into these different levels of perception, that even doing it for 5 minutes transforms reality. That the way, because reality is literally a projection that's based upon what think. And one of the things I was thinking too, so I do sun gazing too, and so I
Yeah.
have a conversation with the sun and with the whole stellar network and everything. While I was sun gazing today, I was thinking that that's an important message for like all of us that are here in order to try to embody this idea of what we are sending out and where it's coming from. And I'm trying to keep my keep the thought too. It's like a newly germinated little thought that I don't want to squash by trying to think it too much. Um, you know what I'm talking about too. This idea of projecting outward what we're internally experiencing, and that the more of us that do that, like we can create almost like a utopian reality,
Yeah.
create a beautiful reality. Why are we projecting expectations of the previous levels of misery that we've all undergone? Like, what does it take for us to say that happened in the past, and now we are experiencing like a watershed moment, like a divider that says, this is all stuff that happened back then in the bad old days, and but moving forward, new things are possible, and I can imagine this, and we can, co-write a different story in a new realm, like new context.
Yeah. It's certainly possible. It does require group effort. It's not something that I wouldn't even go. Probably you yourself could create a thing, but it's more enjoyable to create with other beings, right? You don't want to just be the godhead or whatever making something because it's not enjoyable.
I totally agree. Like, even if you're a master musician like Mozart, right? You can create your whole own symphony. Mozart probably could have performed one symphony, in every single chair if they had recording equipment like that time. He probably could have played
Right.
every instrument and been the entire symphony.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you said, when you sit down with other musicians, there's new patterns that come up that you might not have expected, or that you might not have been able to conceive of. There's this wonderful, I'm putting down my sculpture so I can gesture here. There's this, this synergy or adding together that happens when different particles of self bounce when we bounce off of each other. Like, if we say we're all divine, we're all this, divine emanation, and we're all coming into a physical embodiment, but from slightly different perspectives. So when I'm jamming with you, then new things come out than if I was just doing everything on my own. And that's interesting to me. Like, I don't want to just be an artist isolated in my own studio, never interacting with anyone else. I'm like, no, that's not fun. Like, I actually want to
Yeah.
share ideas and cross pollinate and come up with new things. And I think that's my understanding of, like, why would God fragment God's self, or the divine, whatever word it would be good to use? Why would that divine want to become all these different seemingly separate beings of different flavors? And my best answer is that I think it's more fun to collaborate and be like a band or a symphony than to just be one musician playing something that's
Yeah.
very perfect but very predictable.
I feel like the hallucinogenic experience is more like the first thing. It you take the all of the control at that point, and it can be beautiful, but I think you also start missing out on the unpredictable nature of like dancing with somebody else who you have no clue what they're gonna do, or else even if that brings fear in or something, that also creates some more nuance.
So I'm not that familiar, despite my artwork, I'm not that familiar with the experience of the hallucinogens. So you're saying that that's more of like, so you're swimming in your private pool as opposed to connecting
Yeah,
rivers to other people.
yeah, it's where, at least for me, and I didn't do hallucinogens. This was just marijuana, but I'm really sensitive, so I think it had the same
Okay.
effect. It was where everything started connecting up, and so if I'm moving my arms, then I feel it connecting to all the visual things, and everything is linked up. And then you're like, oh, I'm everything. How do I move out of this? It becomes a little bit freaky.
I think that's the big realization. Like, when our inner eye really starts to awaken, that's the first lesson. Like, when we go to school and the teacher taps on the board, tap, 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 the first lesson is ABC. I think when we begin to awaken, the cosmic teacher tells us the first lesson, and it's tap, 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 you are everything. And I think that can be overwhelming. And then when one returns to mundane awareness, where you're like, wait, I remember in that mind state, I knew I was everything. So then theoretically, I should just be able to hug anyone, right? But it's like, no, don't hug a poisonous snake. That's not good. Like,
Yeah.
everything, but that snake is still poisonous. So then, like, because there are evil people in the world. Like, I had to learn that a lot, because I'm very much coming from that direction of oneness and unity. And when you're from that home, when your hometown is like unity town, then you're not used to going to like the bad neighborhoods where it's like you got to watch out because people are going to try to steal your purse or whatever. So I had
Yeah.
to learn, like, okay, you cannot hug and kiss everyone. No, and it is not a safe place.
Oh,
But
it's like Elf, right? Have you seen Elf with Will Ferrell?
no, I don't know that movie.
You should see it. It's very good. But he's like, he just loves everything, loves everyone. He's, it's an amazing movie. But most people just look at him like, because he's a grown man. He's like 35, but he's like mentally impaired. He's running around trying to hug everybody and just love everything.
Yes, and I think that's like real, that's an ascended mentality. And I don't mean ascended like that poof or Calgon take me away, but it's like when we really metamorphosize our consciousness and transform. It doesn't necessarily mean that we look different, even though the body might transform in this metamorphosis. But it's a different way of looking at the world. Just like if you take a molecule that is a hallucinogenic molecule, it transforms the way you look at the world and it transforms what one perceives. I think it's the same type of thing, that it is like changing the structure of perception, and part of that is like I think quantum theory, not just dropping a cool catchphrase or whatever, but quantum theory in the early 20th century started to create a different mental structure for the masses. Not that I divide everyone up into the masses, but for the general human population, of this idea that what we're experiencing internally is affecting our external realm. Hold on a second, I gotta have my little boss dog jump up here. She needs like a little elevator to jump up. Come on, jump on up. Oh, there we go. Oh, boss dog needed to
Cheeky,
come
what's up? What's up, puppy?
She was on her chair in the back, but she was like, wait, I want to come be.
I saw her back there. I was noticing.
She was having a little dog nap. That's cool. Yeah, when I have a video like this or whatever, try to have nice long WALK so that she'll have a little nap. But she only needs like 5 minutes, and then she's recharged and she's ready to go. And it's wonderful.
She looks full of energy. Welcome to the show, what's her name? Cheeky, but
she is sneaky.
I was about to say sneaky.
She will steal your socks. She'll steal your pizza crusts. You have to watch out. So yeah, she's very sneaky sometimes.
Yes, sneaky Cheeky.
Yeah, definitely. She lives up to the name. And she's a master manifester too. And I can tell when the manifestation energies are very high. Like the other morning, she literally manifested half of a roast beef sandwich at the train stop that we walk past every morning. I'm like, that's clearly her dream come true. So if that's what's going on, I'm going to wish for my dreams to come true today also.
Yeah.
Too. And then it's like, okay, like timing is everything. So, yeah. I tell you, she wishes for like mini hot dogs, she wishes for waffles, and she finds everything on the ground because I'm a health food mom and I don't feed her that stuff. So yes, she definitely gets good stuff.
Do you let her eat them when she finds those kind of things?
I try to take it out of her mouth and say like DROPIT, and usually whatever is the portion that's in her mouth is what she gets to keep, and whatever's hanging out like I'll pull up.
Yeah.
Like I gotta protect her. I don't want her to eat things that are rancid or harmful. But then also I tell myself all the time, dogs are made for eating rancid stuff and they're meant to eat gopher guts, and so I should let her eat stuff like that. So I let her eat fermented gopher guts, but not like processed mini hot dogs. But one time I let her eat the mini hot dogs because you gotta live a little.
Gotta live a little every once in a while, right?
Seriously, I know. And she survived the mini hot dogs, but much like young children, if you feed them red dye number 5 or whatever, and then they act all crazy, her behavior was so naughty on that day that she ate the mini hot dogs. I was like, what's going on? Why the misbehavior? And it was all because I blamed junk food, and she was perfectly fine the next day. So that's it. Yes, I know. I'm like a dog parent. I know.
Yeah.
Tilted so you can see her a little better. So yeah, so Cheeky understands in a very mundane sense how to make what is her mind, imagination, dream come true. If it's mini hot dogs or waffles or a half a roast beef sandwich, she's somehow mastered that capacity. And there's some very clear conduit between her ability to wish and the wish making mechanism of the cosmos. So we just got to get Cheeky to really wish for world peace, wish for transcending like the economic paradigm or something like that, and then like the next morning I'll wake up and it will all be wonderful.
Yeah, I mean it's I'm sure it can happen.
Yes.
It's there are many possibilities. There's no reason why one thing should or shouldn't happen. I feel like
I talk about these things in a lighthearted way, but there's a lot of truth in there. Like really, microbes have imagination, dogs and cats and dolphins have imagination. I'm sure like we can ask for assistance and join together in our musicianship, with dolphins. They're in the band too, and they
Yeah.
have wonderful minds and they have wonderful creative capacities. Because I'm sure that they don't enjoy, like all the dolphins in the Gulf Coast, by Louisiana and everything, where the BP oil explosion happened. The dolphins had horrible stillbirths, and they have, like cancerous lesions, and the bacteria that was released in the water to supposedly eat the petroleum. It's the horrible stuff that I'm sure polluted their whole entire world. Don't you think the dolphins want to envision a better world that doesn't have, flesh-eating bacteria in their entire Gulf, and where they can, live peacefully? I'm sure that they do. It's the kind of idea, like, if you're thinking, like, I'll just incarnate as a field mouse, and then, I'll just live in a field and no one will bother me, except that they're going to start spraying glyphosate on your field. Like, there's even if you want to be a gopher, like, you live underground, but they will spray something underground. So at a certain point, like, let's join together our imagination with the imaginations of the gophers and field mice and dolphins and microbes and everything that wants to live a healthy, whatever, unconstrained existence on this planet, and how about even elsewhere. Like, I'm definitely not, a person that thinks the only life that is in existence is here on this planet. I know that life exists elsewhere, both biological and non-biological. What if we also join together our imagination and capacity to create with our minds with many different organisms that are non-local? Maybe they're facing similar struggles. Maybe they've got crappy stuff exploding on their planet too, and then bacteria being released in their oceans that are supposed to fix it and doesn't actually fix anything. Maybe they also have issues, and maybe they've come up with a solution, and that solution can be applied to our existence. Maybe we've come up with a solution, like a mental structure that can be emanated outward, like a melody.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, wait, I just got this idea, I got this melody from Earth, and now we can use that in order to heal our world. So, like, I'm thinking on a larger musical scale than just, playing like the local rock band. We can play like the giant cosmic symphony across all timelines.
Yeah, sure. I think we can connect with anything. I was trying to connect with some animals at the zoo. I was at the zoo today with the baby and my dad, and I was doing some Reiki with some of them and seeing if they were reacting. They don't always react, but I get them to, like, notice the energy like half the time if I try that with animals.
Yeah, I think animals are totally telepathic, and that, it's a very sad existence. A lot of it depends on the zoo, but some of them have nicer habitats or whatever. But it's like they don't have the freedom. They're constrained in their movement and their food availability, and I think that they know and understand that. And so then there's some question of having to have the sophistication and mentality of the caged animal to say, why am I here? Why am I in a cage? How come I can't just walk around wherever I want to go? Where did I come from? Where is my habitat? What happened to this? It's just like the dolphins that are having stillbirths in the Gulf Coast. It's because they have to understand, oh wait, humans created this horrible nightmarish mess, and this
Right.
was humans took me from my original habitat. Maybe humans destroyed my original habitat, and now I live here in this glass enclosure, and I see humans on the other side. Like, there's a lot to have to process and understand
Right.
on that level.
Even the dolphins might be doing something like what earlier humans used to do, which is like just the sky god did it, or the whoever did it, without knowing that there's an actual being that is responsible for this particular thing.
Right, like the black monster, the goo monster came to our world and killed our babies. It might be something like that. And then they had to all swim away and escape the goo monster and try to find a different place to live.
Yep. But dolphins are also supposed to be really intelligent. Their scientists have studied how they interact with each other, and they're supposed to be as intelligent as humans, or at least nearly.
So I brought them up because they have more convolutions in their surface area of their brain than humans do. So if we are judging intelligence by convoluted, it's basically surface area. So if we looked at a chimpanzee, it has kind of like 1/11 of the convoluted surface area of the human brain, and the surface area matters because that's where most of the neuronal impulses are happening. So if we say, well, wait, we're like 11 times more fancy and special and awesome than a mere chimpanzee, but then we say, well, wait, that brain over there is even more wrinkled than my brain, and it happens dolphin. And think about it, like, a dolphin's life is a good life. You don't have to wear clothes, and you don't have to pay taxes, and you get to swim around all the time, being free and eating fish, and like, fuck you, society. But yeah, like, being a dolphin is cool. Being a human is hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're supposed to be more intelligent than humans. There was a book I read. What was it called? The Illuminatus trilogy. I don't know if you've read that one.
Oh, Robert Anton Wilson.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the dolphins were a huge part of that story, and they were actually just like communicating the whole time when they were down with Hagbard and his crazy like submarine and everything. It was really cool.
That is so funny that you mentioned that. So yeah, Robert Anton Wilson. I think that I don't know if he was a member of the Illuminati or if he was just trying to like. I think he did some good work in exposing them, but then he also kind of like polished their image a lot
Yeah.
too, made them look a lot more deep and wise and maybe benevolent than they really are. But he had this phrase that he used to say, "Keep the lasagna flying." And that was before, I don't know if he knew about my flying rainbow lasagna, but when I heard that, I'm like, wait, who is this guy? And what is this? And what is this going on? So he had this thing, it was different than flying rainbow lasagna. It was kind of like the quantum indeterminacy of if you have a pan of lasagna and it gets knocked off, the kitchen table. And for that moment that it is in between the surface of the table and the surface of the floor, it's in a state of quantum indeterminacy. We don't know exactly what's going on with it. So he used to joke, let's keep that lasagna flying. Like, don't let it hit the floor. Keep like the
Yeah.
possibilities of life
Keep the
going.
keep the tension.
That's what it is. Like in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, when you press the big red button, it's the infinite improbability drive, and like reality gets scrambled. You roll the dice, anything can possibly happen. I think that's along the lines of what I look at with this shape and what I'm trying to share, and the ideas in this shape. And it's the idea that our DNA, and this matters because of some of these like cosmic rules of ethics. Your body is the only real estate that you really own. It's the only, like, I don't own my shirt, I don't own my carpet, I don't even own my dog. My dog owns herself. Like, living beings, we own ourselves. This is your real estate, and it's why it's so special to be here and have a body. And I'm always trying to tell people that, because so many people are programmed with that sense of that humans are worthless or ugly or disgusting or greasy or are fat or have stretch marks. And it's like, oh my God, even if you have stretch marks, like, you're a walking miracle. Like that's, be proud of who you are. So the idea is everything that's going on inside of your body, like, you get to be in charge of it, and that no one else is supposed to be determining what you do with your DNA or what you do with your muscle matter or what you do with your bones or your posture or anything like that. So, and that's a big, it's a big thing to claim. In childhood, parents usually say, like, I own you and you're my child, like that. And that's also what our government and society agrees, that children are owned by their parents. And that's how come they can justify parents doing things like vaccinating or circumcising their kids, because it's like, oh, I own your body and you're not allowed to even like get a tattoo unless I say you're allowed to. So there's something about, like, everybody needs to claim their ownership. Like, even little children own their bodies, and no one should do anything to them. Sorry, I gotta drink some water, against their will. So, Boba, DNA is your real estate.
I have heard of this concept of owning your body, and I don't know exactly what I think about it as far as childhood, because there is a certain amount of they can't make decisions on their own, but on the flip side, other things like circumcision. I mean, that's, to me, that's a big question. It's not just easy, but it's important as well. Like the whole given name thing, and then that being a crutch later in life. Like, yes, you didn't decide that could happen to you, and what does it really mean? But then also, like, we don't remember asking to come into the body either. So there's a lot of vague things going on there.
Okay, I don't mean to like alienate Jewish people or be divisive or anything like that, but I have to say that this idea, so like, Judaism is a religion that comes from an ancient practice of animal sacrifice, and that the idea, it's like 5,000 years plus old, and that modern Judaism has mitigated some of these original practices. But yeah, like, the original religion was, you take an animal like a dove or an oxen and you sacrifice it in the name of your God. And what parents are doing when they circumcise their child, they're like taking a piece of their baby's flesh and cutting it off in the name of their God. And to me, that is, not really a way to honor real divinity. To me, that is like how to feed in archonic, or like occupier of the interstice, what God needs to feed off of baby foreskins. Like, that doesn't sound like a real God to me. And again, not trying to cast aspersions upon religion or faith or anything like that, but these are, I feel, harmful, negative practices when they are imposed upon young people. Like, if adults were like, I want to cut off a piece of the foreskin in deference to the sky god, then that's different. That's your adult choice, or any of the things that people do. But imposing it upon your children is huge. And then the impact that circumcision has on males because of the way that it's done, and because of the way that it's done without anesthetic, it's often called penis lobotomy, because it affects the frontal lobe in the same way that lobotomy does too. So there's real neurological changes that happen as a result.
Because of the pain, because of how yeah, kids, they experience pain much more traumatically, and they're much more sensitive than if you chopped off a foreskin with a 30-year-old. It'd be completely.
Absolutely. I mean, even that would not be wonderful. I'm sorry that this conversation is going in this direction.
No, it's important though.
Anesthetized surgery even in adulthood is not very wonderful and good, but it's highly traumatic, and it harms the neurological structure of developing male infants. And so it's like, if we want to do, we're talking about inner manifestation of an outer manifestation of an inner utopia. And if we're saying, well, hey, that this is part of what's going on, torturing small children in the name of divinity is what's going on for 5,000 years, maybe it is time to change and to have things be different. And I know that's a pretty big sacred cow to criticize, because it is taken as a normal portion of human society. But I'm really more like, I'm a visitor from the galaxy, and I don't see that as normal at all. I'm like, oh my God, like, this is what they're doing around here. Okay, like, now, like, how can we get everybody on the same page if this is not what's supposed to be? So this, the idea of body sovereignty, I think, is very big, because then it's also, sovereignty from government. No, there should not be that. Mandated vaccines. There should not be any form of mandated body scanning. Like, the idea of going to the airport and being intentionally irradiated in a body scanner so that you can get on an airplane is completely horrifying to me. And all the other things. So many people have just accepted, invasion of the body is a normal thing, and I think that that's even preparation or grooming for like a transhumanist kind of invasion, that people think like, being invaded by the government, being invaded by the religion, or by mom or dad, or by medical professionals. Why not a computer like that? And I'm clearly, for anyone who's just watching this and who doesn't know me or whatever, like, that's not what I propose at all. Like, I'm totally I'm not about the transhumanist agenda at all, and I think it's a really slippery slope that I would warn everyone against, because that's that whole thing. Like, I'm telling you, like, celebrate being a human with stretch marks. Our bodies are literally miraculous, and because our bodies have provenance. Like, when you have an antique or a special artwork, like a Picasso or whatever, then it's not just like, oh, look, guys, I found a Picasso hanging on my garage. I found it in my garage. The art historians want to know the provenance. Like, where did that painting come from? And where did it come from? And how do we trace it back to Picasso? Our bodies are made of solidified light, and we have provenance. That means all of the molecules and atomic structure of our body comes from light, and also the food that we eat and all of that. And we're special in the sense that you can trace back the origins of everything that we have, that we're using for our present, art project or self-expression, comes from the stars and the stellar network. We're not just some slapdash, like put together clone, like a mishmash of cells or something like that. We are finely tuned, musicians, engineered, put together intentionally is what I'm trying to say. And each one of our cells and the photons that make up our cells are special and coming from a very particular source and going to where they're coming, point A from where they're coming from, and point B to where they're going to, is all very intentional and very special. And that gets totally subverted. I think I said on one of your other shows when we did an interview another time, never give up your regular body for a clone body.
Yeah.
A diamond for a cubic zirconium. Right. Literally, cubic zirconium is a human-created diamond. There's nothing wrong with it, but it wasn't created in a volcano under giant natural pressures. Right. It was made in a lab.
Right. Yeah, I feel like, and not to bring us back to circumcision, but this was on my mind, so I wanted to say it. I saw for the first time people actually protesting about the subject in general in San Francisco, and I just thought, I was like, well, this is it's good that people are actually considering whether it should be done or not, because that's the first step. If it actually is harmful, and if logic, clear mind will tell you yes, it's harmful, then if you have enough people discussing it, then that will be, eventually we'll get rid of it.
So it's this kind of collective madness at this moment, that it's a harmful harmful biological practice that's torturous for infants, and it's so socially acceptable and prevalent that up until this point that hasn't even been considered. That all
Right.
it's been considered is, hey, it's a tradition and it's normal, we do it this way, and this is just the way that we do it. And maybe it's really time for cultural and planetary healing to say not just, oh, it's just always the way we've always done it, but maybe we need to transform, we need to reevaluate everything that we just take as normal, de rigueur, like that's just the normal way we always do it. We always chop off baby penises. Like, no, we don't always do that. Maybe we should do something different from now on. So everything from the expectation of poverty. Like, if we have one person that is rich, then why do we have to have 22,000 people that are poor? Like, it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
But this is some of these basic presumptions, these basic foundation underlying presumptions. Maybe it doesn't really have to be that way. So it's time to, like, if I were, and I am, like a debugger, like a computer debugger, and I came to this planet and I'm like looking at human culture as if it were a software program, even though I'm not a transhumanist, but I'm like, okay, let's find the bugs. Let's see, like, why is this not running right? Like, why do we have people eating out of garbage heaps? Like, why do we have babies born with brain cancer? Why is this happening? And then I'm like, oh, because this is written wrong over here. This is not supposed to be this way over here. Let's fix this basic faulty underlying logic, and then all of the faulty logics that grow from it will change too. So that's like, you know, when I think one of the solutions is sun gazing, that's getting like a direct download into the antenna of your DNA. Bypassing words. Language is literally a virus. And it's ironic because we're using technology.
We're halfway using words.
Totally. I know. It would be so much easier if I could just do like a direct Vulcan mind meld, tell you everything that's in my mind, just send it out to everyone. Cheeky will also participate too. They'll think about mini hot dogs and she'll be there.
Yeah.
But we're using words, and it's necessary in this time and place to share these ideas that are about freedom. Like, when we have real freedom, the truth is we're going to do very little actual speaking with words like this, because we will do just direct, like, this is how dolphins speak too. I don't think that they have to actually make auditory noises to be able to communicate with one another, that they're communicating over vast distances using an energy field. And I think trees do the same thing. And so there's a lot of under-recognized telepathic or higher dimensional thought structure on our planet and elsewhere. Like, if you want to be like, let's look for the search for intelligent life, like, begin on this planet. There's intelligence in microbes and intelligence in the connection of trees. It's like, if you have a tree in your front yard, it's literally connected to trees on other continents. They're like, in the same way that my computer can be connected to someone that's in Australia. Like, that is normal to the technological mindset of a present modern human. And for me to say, like, oh, trees all talk to each other, they think like, Aurora, that's crazy. But if I said that to someone from thousands of years ago, they'd be like, oh, Aurora, of course, that's perfectly normal. Of course, all the trees talk to each other, and all the birds carry messages, to one another.
Right.
All the worms talk to each other.
Well, if you think about just the harmony that is present in nature, anywhere where you go, that harmony is there because every element is speaking to each other. And it's not all in words. None of it is in words. It's all in whatever language the animals are speaking. And so if you took just that aspect of humanity, the fact that we use words and no animals don't, you could say, yeah, there's the mind virus right there. It's words. And it's
totally.
Like, not saying words are all bad. They can be all right too, but they do carry a lot of dysfunction in them.
You said the magic word. It's harmony. This idea of music, because music is beyond words. Like, there's instrumental music, and then there's music that has words. I know this guy. He's a really cool guy, Bill Getman, and he records trees singing. Like, he's a scientist and he has degrees and everything, and he also has developed this apparatus. It's like these electrodes that he puts on the leaves, and not every tree sings, and they don't all sing at the same time.
Yeah.
And so he has to ask them, like, will you please sing a song for me? And it's fascinating. He approached it as an academic project, and I'm sure that there are some other people that I just don't know about that are approaching it as a music project. But yeah, trees are singing all the time, plants are dancing, but they're just in very, very slow motion while they're doing this. And it's literally like, when life is thriving, it's thriving because it's making good music. Our bodies are healthy when our cellular structure is making pretty music. And our bodies don't thrive and they die when we make ugly music. We're going to make ugly music. Listen. That's like having a disease. That's like, that's not music. That's noise. I know Cheeky didn't like it. She's like, I have very sensitive dog ears. she's a tough critic for music. She really is, but she likes certain songs, and then I can tell that there's something to those songs that she will tolerate. So
Yeah.
she's like, you're
Do you create any music yourself?
yes, I absolutely do. And so I don't have anything recorded to share with you or whatever. And I was trying to set up, I have my keyboard here, but I have it also set up as like a MIDI thing with GarageBand, but I can't do that while I'm on Zoom. It's too technological. I was trying to do it like 5 minutes before we got on board here. And I'm like, let me know. But what I'm working on right now is very exciting. It's a music visualizer program that takes an animated version of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna shape and it makes it move in time to music. And the input of the
Oh,
music
nice.
it can be MIDI keyboard or it can be my voice or it can be whatever. So I'm literally working on this immersive project where the image is projected inside of a room and the music is created and the image changes in response to the music. And it's like basically trying to externalize what is going on inside of my mind so that everybody can be part of what I call the cosmic dance party. I kind of want to just be one person dancing at the dance party. I want to have lots and lots of people dancing at the dance party. So yeah, that's what I'm working on because I don't know, again, if anyone is new to this concept here, this is a static, sculpture, three-dimensional shape, but it's a four-dimensional and higher shape. So it's moving. So this is, it's constantly rotating and it's jumping up and down and it moves in this orientation, but it also moves in this orientation, like jumping back and forth, and it also does jumping in and out, and then it also does these fun like end over end, side to side movements too, and those are like different notes on the
Hmm.
piano scale, like the different orientations of the lasagna. So we can make all these different songs. It's also like the different amino acids in your DNA that you've got these basic building blocks or basic movements that can be combined together into all these different new, fun, and interesting patterns that are melodies. And that's literally what this is all about. Each person has their DNA song or melody. It's like the song of you. And it literally is what makes you be transported through time. And we have this perception phenomenon that is called persistence of vision, where like if you old fashioned movies are made out of flashing still frames. I'm not talking about digital movies because that's different. That's a refresh rate that goes like from the top of the screen down to the bottom of the screen and then back up again. So it's not a perfect analogy, but old fashioned, like cameras with film that made actual movies is a perfect analogy because it's individual still frames that are
Hmm.
moments of time, and
Yeah.
they flash by at exactly the right rate so that our system of perception smushes them together and makes it look like it's one smooth movement. That's called persistence of vision. And the whole point of saying this is that it's us. We are the apparatus that is tying together various moments like frozen still
Yeah.
frames
Right.
into
Right. Right.
something that looks like reality. And
Hmm.
that means we are magicians. We're constantly doing this, Matt, or we're more miracle workers of perception. And we're doing this all the time. Most people are not even recognized. Like you could be driving to work in the morning, listening to stupid music and drinking your coffee to try to stay awake. And you're a miraculous, magician
Yeah. Yeah.
making
Yeah. Yeah.
moments stick together through time.
Right.
So and if that, like, if we recognize that we're miraculous magicians, they're like, wait a minute, do I really want to be, in my car driving my coffee going to a cubicle job that I don't want to do? Or would I rather
Right. Right. Right.
transform my reality and, harvesting watermelons in a permaculture farm instead?
Hmm.
Whatever would be a utopian existence. I didn't know why I said watermelons in a permaculture.
Watermelons are good though.
That would be a good life, like as many melons as you could possibly eat,
Yeah.
Gary. Live off the
Watermelons,
fat of the land.
cantaloupes, honeydews. Who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah.
Melons are great.
And pineapples and
Uh huh. Uh huh. Yeah. That. That's a good point though. The persistence of perception because um, that's also the jumping off point for bad things to happen too, which is why you need to remember how to defend yourself because there are systems that transition your pleasant little thing into something that's not so pleasant, and that's another you need to defend.
What a great point. Thank you for that. It's personal responsibility. So if I get a magical paintbrush that I can use to paint anything I want to have happen in the world, I should be responsible for what I paint. I'm not going to want to paint like, let's paint a train wreck and see a lot of blood. Like, no, I don't want to paint that.
Hmm.
So, if people struggle with anxiety or negative projections of the future. Like, I think that that's very common. I think that's very human. It's time to rein all of that in and be like, no, no, I don't want to imagine that anyone that I love is dead in a ditch, or that there's diseases in my body, or that I'm going to die, or anything like that. Like, I'm going to imagine the best possibilities. I'm going to imagine, a state, living in a state of total health, and, transforming the planet, and everyone I love is healthy and thriving and alive and continues to move through time, and, put my energy and my attention onto those. And if your mind wanders, it's like, sometimes when I'm playing music, I'm like, oh, that was the wrong note, that was not right, or whatever. You get to play it again. You don't have to think like, oh no, I played the wrong note, life is over. Like, you don't have to. It's not like the cosmos is gonna bitch slap you. Like, why did you try to ever make anything happen like that? Because I don't know if people had like a tough upbringing where, sometimes parents are like that, where it's like, why did you even try? Like, you're destined for failure. It's like, no, the cosmos is not like that. The cosmos is like, you tried, that wasn't perfect, try again. It's like a loving piano teacher that's like, no, that wasn't quite the right note, try to do it better. And when I do paintings, like the really complex ones that are over here and everything, before I get to the complex parts, I do tons and tons of sketches that are just done with pencil, and I make mistakes and I screw it up, and I'm like, oh, that's not right at all, and I do scratch it out and screw it up. You got to give yourself creative freedom to make some mistakes, and that's part of, when we're using our mental paintbrush and our imagination, you get to make some creative mistakes. But also, like, so when I'm doing my Flying Rainbow on You Dance, I'll be doing all these maneuvers, and then at a certain point I'll do the erasing. I'd be like, okay, now it's time to erase all the stuff that I don't want to have happen. If my mind wandered, if I thought about something negative, if I thought in a worried sense, what if someone I love is dead? I'll just erase that stuff out. Because any one of us can make a mistake, and it's not, it should not be something that one is punished for.
Right. Cheeky, do you have anything to contribute?
I think that she would like, in a few minutes when we're done, to take a WALK. I think that's
yes.
Even though, I gave her like plenty of exercise before we get going. I think that she's like been pretty patient and whatever. We'll do that.
Can we possibly go for a little tour of your art that's on the wall, or?
I would love to. I don't know. Well, my computer's hooked up to all of these wires and stuff. So
if it will still have internet and you unplug things and maybe we lose sound, I think that would still be okay.
Okay, cool. All right, cool. Here, let me put Cheeky down. Hold on a second. We're gonna put you down for a second and see if I can turn on a better light over here. And also, my place is crazy messy because I just moved and I still have.
Yeah. No, it looks a lot cleaner than every time I've ever moved.
God, I still have cardboard boxes. I have a whole room that is just the disaster area. This is like the room that looks good.
Yes.
Okay, so now I'm unplugging this, which is just the power cord.
Actually, the mic should still work because your computer has an inner mic.
Oh, well then, okay, then I have to take off. I have this outer mic. I have the outer mic going right now.
It should automatically port over when you unplug it.
Okay, then I'm going to do this. Be prepared, everyone. I'm unplugging things.
No more sound. But it's still good though. Yeah, good. Yeah. Eyes are.
Now.
Okay, now I can hear you again.
Now, okay, but now I'm going to take off another thing. Let's see if the computer still works. If I take off another cord, is it still working?
Yes.
All right, cool. Now I'll go backwards like this. Okay, cool.
Yes.
So these two paintings are the two most recent ones that I did. This is Supernumerary 1 and Supernumerary 2. And what's special about them is that they are what happens when I do overlapping octaves of color, just in the same way, I'm trying to move it so you can see it better. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
That in the same way that you can do overlapping octaves of music and then come up with interesting overtones, I explored the same thing with visual octaves. So I've got patterns there that are like 12 inches going down to 1.68 inches, but then also 24 inches, and then also 48 inches. And that's exactly what octaves are like. If I play a little bit of music here, wait, turn on the regular piano. Here's like a C, but then here's a higher C,
mm-hmm.
and then a higher one. And that's because we are doubling the frequency of how fast the waves are moving. So I'm doing that. I didn't know that I was doing that. I came to music later in my exploration of everything. Then I came to art first. So I was expressing all these harmonics visually before I understood musical harmonics. And then once I started to understand that, I'm like, oh, the way that the waveforms fit together is exactly like what I've been painting. So here, this one, I don't know if you can see if the light is cool.
Yeah, this one's good.
this is an exploration of what happens when I overlap two harmonics. So I've got one that is the C or the red note is at 12 and one is at 24. That's the one I did 2 years ago. And then I moved over to these ones where it's like, no, let's do 3 octaves, so it's like I'm always trying to be more and, like add in more flourishes and add in
Yeah.
challenges and stuff. Now I'll go, these are older pieces, and let's see if we can get the lighting not perfect. I don't know if you can see this.
The lighting's pretty good.
I'm gonna turn on an overhead light.
Lighting is good.
Oh, this piece over here is called Birth of a New Dimension. And up at the top, oh, sorry, the camera is...
The piece on the left you're talking about?
This piece over here.
Ah, yes.
There we go. That part up at the top is a motif that I also have a smaller piece. And if I hold it really, really close, you should be able to see that it's... There we go. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's the Earth.
Exactly. It's
birthing something, right?
Earth has an ordinarily toroidal or donut-shaped magnetosphere, and in this image, it's becoming a flying rainbow lasagna, which is a higher dimensional torus. So most of my paintings are kind of abstract and they don't really have a narrative, but this one I did specifically to tell a story of what's happening down at the bottom in terms of the toroidal energy field, and there's some raised dimensional paint that is in the shape of the star tetrahedron or the Merkaba. And Merkaba just means light body vessel, so it's basically humans creating this light body vessel that you don't need a clank metal starship to fly somewhere. It's an inner journey done with your birthday suit. Mm-hmm. And transforming, and people are like, hey, like there's alien dudes wearing black sunglasses in that painting. I'm like, well, technically, so this is also about what consciousness is. Where does consciousness come from? These are different levels of consciousness that are coming from different directions, but that this is all the same consciousness essentially. But you're always meeting yourself, but just coming from a different direction. It's that idea of like one photon endlessly embroidering. And this one over here is also, it's many, move my face, it's many star tetrahedra put together into an overarching vessel. So I don't know if you can see, like there's one up there, and then there's one over there, and then there's one down there, and there's one down there. Like, this is what a real starship is. It's not made of metal planks, riveted together or something like that, welded together. It's made of consciousness that is tied together, and it's tied together through really a bridge of love. So none of this is about exploitation. That's the whole idea. Like, love is an equal giving and receiving. Mm-hmm. So this is like when you're in the right context with other living beings, that can be microbes or trees or beautiful dogs or other human beings or dolphins. Everybody's giving, everybody's receiving, and it has stability. Like it's not sustainable.
Symbiosis.
Totally. It's not sustainable if it's out of balance, because someone is always giving more than they're getting, or they're taking more than they're giving.
Right.
In order for, just like a star, in order for a star to radiate, it has to send out a certain amount and also bring in a certain amount. So this is like us literally becoming stars. Spoiler alert. We become literal stars. Like the star, when you're looking up at the stars at night, that's us. That's actually us up there. I know, but just we come from a very different direction and move, in a very different way. Oh, wait, this is a good one. This one is very accurate, and I did it for a math art conference, and it's all of those.
Oh, that one's awesome.
Yeah, and it goes very, very tiny too. Yeah. It was very challenging to paint. Let's see if we can get some shine on it so you can see it's got some texture. And this is, well, it's a take on the Mobius transformation. So many people know Mobius from his famous strip, right?
Yep.
Which is kind of a twisted plane that only has one side. And this central motif here is a Mobius transformation. It's basically what happens when you reflect a grid. We got some background music. Okay, we reflect a grid in a curved surface. So what we're actually looking at is a grid that has many 90-degree angles, kind of like a checkerboard or something like that. But because it's been reflected in a curved surface, it looks like it's curved. And every single one of these little what can I call them, like shapes, these little 4 vortex shapes, that's a time vortex, that's a life. This is a map of time. So I tried to make it as accurate as I possibly could. And then I'll bring it on over. I don't know if you can see this this drawing that I've got going here. Yeah, you can kind of see this line drawing. So
Yeah.
this is the drawing for what is going to happen in the next painting. And this is exactly like I'm telling you, I don't know everything in the beginning. When I first start off, I have to kind of figure things out. So here, well, look, boss is right here too. Here's the boss. So I have to do things in pencil. And sometimes I make a mistake or I draw something wrong, but the pencil gives me the freedom to explore and to experiment, because sometimes I don't know exactly what I'm doing. And I think that, the cosmic creator needs to allow us to sometimes not know exactly what we're doing, jazz around,
Oh
improv
yes,
a little.
that's my whole life. There are some inklings, but there's not a lot.
I think that's okay, because I think also on the creative journey, like, you come up with cool stuff that way. You come up with cool
Yeah,
stuff, and
yeah.
it's not predictable. That it's really important to not just follow predictable patterns. That's that other thing that sets apart humanity or dolphins from some digital intelligence, that we don't just run in predictable patterns, that we also are able to innovate and make new things happen. So yeah, in every one of my paintings, I'm working with some patterns that are already established, but then I also try really hard not to just do what I've always done, and, like, making the same tacos I've always ever made. Like, no, like, today the tacos must be flavored differently, like, make something a little different.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm exploring adding these Vesica Pisces, that I hope you can kind of see that shape a little bit there. That's that kind of lozenge lobe shape there,
Mhm.
in with these central, I call it chakra shapes, but I'm talking about these time vortices that have a very particular nested proportional pattern to them. So this whole, like, this is the music of each one of us. It's the music of time. It's the music that integrates with our body. And so I know that melody very well, but I'm like, I don't really know this melody that well. What would happen if I put these two melodies together? Because all sorts of cool things happen where the lines are tangential, like where the lines kind of fit together like this. So I work with circle templates and protractors and rulers, and it's visual thinking. Like, I don't sit down and do math like 1+1=2. I do it on here, and I move circles around, and and I'll do it all with music going. Like, I
Yeah,
told
yeah,
you,
yeah.
you don't just do a standing jump. Like, you kind of got to, like, get into it. And
Right.
then sometimes I'm like, oh, and now I know how it all fits together. And then I'm like, okay, cool. I have my map. I know where I'm going, and then the map gets you know put more and more details into it, so it gets more fun and interesting. But I have the bare bones of the map. So this is what I was working on right before I relocated, and now I kind of have to get back into the creative groove. But it's like, kind of like, I know where I'm going, so I feel better, because at least I know
Yeah,
where I'm
yeah.
going.
How often do you complete a piece, would you say?
So if my life were completely normal and I didn't have to, like, relocate and do all sorts of crazy stuff, maybe I could do, 2 panels of 48 inches a year. And my life has been very crazy the past 2 years. So I average about one 48-inch panel, and maybe 2 or 3 24-inch panels, with, like, the smaller studies that I do. Like, I'm doing one that is just this 24-inch size, that's the center. So I'll figure out that portion of the song, and then I'll put it into this bigger one. The
Ah,
bigger
okay.
one's gonna have more stuff going around the edges too.
I see, I see. So
Yeah.
wow, that's a really that's a long process.
So it is a long. It's like learning a symphony or something like that.
Yeah.
How long does it take to learn Mozart's symphony? How long did it take him to write it? A long time. And then it takes a long time for you to learn it. And the good thing is that when I learn something like this, I've internalized it. It's inside of me, just like when a
Mhm.
musician learns a song. It's inside of you. You can't forget it. So I feel confident, like, it's time well spent, because it's not like I just, it's not going to poof disappear. It's like, oh, it's like if you ran a marathon, you're like, I earned those muscles. I ran that marathon. So I feel like I've earned my mental muscles by doing this. And it's not just, like, I didn't just computer generate something. Like, I really learned it and thought about it and internalized it. And then, yeah, I could recreate it if I was on a desert island and all I had was coconuts. I'd be like, I'll paint that painting out of coconut dust, or, something like that.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, I love your art. Do you sell it to, or people buy you? How do you reproduce it, or what?
Yeah, I have a print service, so I definitely sell prints of my work. And also, but you can kind of see I'm wearing my leggings here. I'll take
Oh
this
yeah.
better. Yeah, so
Nice.
these are here. Hold it so you can see me better. So I do reproductions of my paintings on clothing. Like, this is leggings that I've got, but I also have dresses and scarves and bandanas and t-shirts and hoodies. So, you know, if the painting takes a year to do, then that can be a little bit costly, prohibitive, not just for, you know, the everyman. So I really wanted to make something that allows people to have these patterns in their homes. So yeah, I have things like shower curtains and you know, placemats and
And
leg.
what's the? I'll link your website in the.
Thank you. That's awesome. That's a free plug for me. Right, I'll sit down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have everything in an Etsy shop that you can find linked to my Flying Rainbow Lasagna website. So I'll send you both of the links, and that's actually super wonderfully helpful because that helps to keep my lasagna aloft, like keep
Yeah.
lasagna off the ground in an indeterminate quantum state.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
The Schrodinger cat lasagna, right?
That's exactly right. You press the infinite probability drive and just go.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. But one more thing before I go. How often do you wear these things out in public, and do people comment on them? Like, yeah.
All the time, all the time. I'm a walking artwork. Like I wear my earrings all the time, and you know I try to wear, you know, leggings or a t-shirt or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I walk my dog around the neighborhood. So yeah, people often comment upon it, and that's the whole point. Like I like to, you know, embody this artwork, and also it allows me to talk about some of these concepts. Like if I'm in the grocery line and buying some chicken at the store or whatever, and someone talks about my earrings, I'm like, these are interdimensional genetic portals, and I lasagnify everyone in the store. Like this is, you know, because it's like, how often do you get a chance to talk to people about this stuff? So
Yeah.
so I'm trying to share the idea so that everyone can rearrange their genetic code and live a more expansive, free, wonderful existence.
Yes. Thank you for your efforts, Aurora. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you too, Gary. Thank you as always. Thank you for inviting me here for a conversation, letting me lasagnify more people with my radiation.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming. We'll do it again sometime.
Thank you. Have a wonderful night.
Okay, you too. Bye. Ora. There we go. Okay, bye, Aurora.